Imagine stepping into a room where George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, JFK, and Barack Obama are all sitting at the same table, each holding a pen that helped shape America. What would they say to each other? What would they argue about? Now imagine this. One president died just a month into office. Another ran the country from a wheelchair without most people even knowing. One rewrote the rules of media while another dodged assassination multiple times. This isn't just a list of presidents. This is the real story of how 46 very different men shaped the most powerful office on earth, and how their decisions still shape your life today. Stick around, because the further we go, the more surprising it gets. We begin in 1789, but the seeds of the presidency were planted long before. The founding fathers had just kicked out a king and were terrified of too much power in one person's hands. So they created a president, not a monarch, not a ruler, but a servant of the people. George Washington was the obvious choice. A war hero, a unifier. But he didn't want the job. In fact, he feared what power could do to a man. Still, he stepped in, reluctantly, and in doing so, defined the role forever. No crown, no throne, just a man walking away after 2 terms. John Adams followed, a brilliant mind but not exactly a people person. He passed the controversial Alien and Sedition Acts, which criminalized criticism of the government, a major irony for a revolution based on free speech. And then came Thomas Jefferson, who expanded the country with the Louisiana Purchase, even though he wasn't sure it was constitutional. These early presidents weren't just building policy. They were inventing the playbook for an entirely new system of power. As America grew westward, so did its tensions. Andrew Jackson, elected in 1828, was a populist, a rough-edged war hero who promised to fight for the common man. He also massively expanded presidential power and enforced the brutal Trail of Tears, leading to the forced relocation of thousands of Native Americans. By the 1850s, the country was fracturing. Presidents like James Buchanan failed to hold it together, and in 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected, a moment that lit the fuse for the Civil War. Lincoln, calm and deeply principled, led not just with strategy, but with words. His Emancipation Proclamation changed the moral course of the nation, and his assassination in 1865 turned him into a legend. But the question lingered. Could the presidency hold the country together in its darkest hour? After the Civil War, the presidency went through a quieter era. Some say the office shrank in power. But behind the scenes, America was transforming. Railroads, industry, wealth. Then came Theodore Roosevelt, a man who spoke softly and carried a big stick. He busted corporate monopolies, preserved national parks, and personally charged up San Juan Hill during war. He wasn't just a president, he was a spectacle. Roosevelt also made the presidency visible. He used newspapers, speeches, and image to connect directly with the people, a hint of what would come next. The 20th century redefined the presidency. Woodrow Wilson took America into World War I and pushed for the League of Nations, but he also resegregated federal offices and suffered a stroke that left his wife secretly handling much of his role. Then came the biggest test, the Great Depression. Enter Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, who, in his fireside chats, calmed a terrified nation. He served 4 terms, launched massive reforms with the New Deal, and led America through World War II, all while battling polio from a wheelchair. After his death, the presidency was limited to 2 terms, but the legacy of executive power kept growing. Harry Truman dropped the atomic bomb, then created NATO and sent troops to Korea. Dwight Eisenhower, a World War II general, brought a calm hand during the tense early Cold War. Then came the young, charismatic John F. Kennedy, whose 1962 standoff with the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis nearly started World War III. His assassination shocked the world. Lyndon B. Johnson, his successor, passed landmark civil rights laws, but also escalated the Vietnam War, igniting protests at home. Richard Nixon. He opened China and ended the Vietnam War, but also became the first and only president to resign after the Watergate scandal. It was the presidency's lowest point, and proof that not even the president is above the law. Ronald Reagan, a former actor, revolutionized how presidents communicated. With optimism and catchphrases, he brought down inflation, faced off with the Soviets, and ended the Cold War with powerful speeches. Tear down this wall wasn't just theater, it was diplomacy with style. George H.W. Bush, a foreign policy expert, led during the Gulf War, but economic troubles hurt his re-election. Then came Bill Clinton, the internet president, balancing budgets and booming the economy, but also facing impeachment in one of the most public scandals in American history. George W. Bush started his presidency quietly, until September 11th changed everything. His response launched the War on Terror, reshaped US foreign policy, and defined a generation of politics. Barack Obama, elected in 2008, became the first African-American president, promising hope and change. His presidency was historic, deeply symbolic, and controversial, especially over healthcare and foreign policy. Then, Donald Trump, a billionaire outsider, broke almost every political rule. He used Twitter as a direct channel to the people, was impeached twice, and remains one of the most polarizing figures in modern history. Joe Biden, taking office during a pandemic and political divide, has aimed to restore calm, but the challenges of the presidency haven't gotten any easier. So where are we now? The president today must be a leader, diplomat, communicator, strategist, and sometimes crisis manager. The role has grown, but the core remains the same: to represent and serve the people. From Washington's quiet dignity to Roosevelt's radio charisma, from Lincoln's steady leadership to Kennedy's inspiration, the presidency is both a reflection of America and a force that shapes it. Now it's your turn. Who do you think was the greatest US president, and why? Was it a wartime leader, a reformer, a communicator? Drop your thoughts below. Let's spark a real conversation about legacy, leadership, and history. Hit the like button if you learned something new. Subscribe for deep dives into the most fascinating stories in history. Share this video with a friend who loves American history or needs a crash course on the presidency. Thanks for watching, and remember, the people who made history were once ordinary. Maybe one day someone will be telling your story.